One of the most terrifying thoughts for any human being is to be an outcast. No, Andre 3000. To be somebody who is seen as an outsider, to be kicked out of the tribe, to no longer be accepted in the group, the tribe, the culture, the community, whatever it may be, right? And for me, for a very long time, most of my life, I feared being an outcast of any group, and more specifically and more importantly, you know, the black community, right? I saw myself as an extension, even though there were many parts of me that didn't resonate and relate to the so-called community and what it had become, right? Because of the context of when I was born. If I was born in the 1920s, I would have fit like a glove. But as we progressed and as there was more and more of this dysfunction that was being celebrated, the degeneracy and things of that nature, I found myself in a place where I was becoming more and more uncomfortable with portraying that image, yet I still kind of kept the image up in order for me not to be, I guess, become an outcast, right? I don't want to be kicked out of the club. And I understood innately that the one thing that would get me disqualified, absolutely removed, was not if I was promoting, degeneracy and violence. That actually probably would get me promoted within the space. But if I started to speak on issues within the culture itself, if I began to have a different perception, different mentality than those who were still on the Democratic plantation, if I started to think for myself, I knew, at least inherently, because I hadn't felt the pressure as much on the external, but I just knew if I step away from a lot of these, beliefs, I'm probably going to face some level of backlash. Now, nothing prepared me for what would come on November 4th, 2024, a day before the election. I did not do this on purpose. Like I wasn't trying to create no clickbait, no rage bait or whatever it was. I just put up a little comedic video, a little 15 or maybe even 20-second video that basically showed my political affiliation, my political allegiance. And I guess because I'd never gone there, I had never expressed anything politically before that point, the audience that I had created at that time was an audience who, they were more than triggered, because I didn't just get people unfollowing me, right? It would have been one thing if they're just like, go by the wayside. Oh, I don't resonate with this guy, whatever. No, these are people who let me know in the comment section of that video, unfollow, unbelievable. How could you? And there was, far worse. And there have been much worse ever since. Make sure to watch a video of mine. It is the meanest comment I received in 2024. Right? Where a dude was just, he wished death upon me. He wished that I take my own life. He wished that certain things happened to me. It was just, one of those sort of, the full accumulation of all the hatred that is felt towards somebody who thinks different than the herd. It's all in there, right? It's a piece of work. But on that day, I experienced kind of this onslaught. And to be fair, I used to fear this. I used to fear, again, being rejected, ostracized, and in such a public way. That was a terrifying thing for me. Now, I'm a recovered people pleaser. So you can imagine that some of the leftover aspects of that people pleasing personality was like, damn, it's over. Yet at the very same time, it was exactly what I needed to completely liberate me. The only way that I could truly be free was to completely show the world who I was, no matter what the consequences would be, even if I got my so-called black card revoked. And that's what happened, right? About 1,500 followers within the sequence of 3 days following that post who would eventually, go by the wayside. They would unfollow me. Some of which, again, would articulate. They would just let me know. Yet they would show up after I post other posts, right? It's like day one, oh, I'm unfollowing you. How dare you? I can't believe. And then 3 posts later, they're showing up again arguing. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you here? And I even remember one of my other followers, loyal folks. And they came in and they said, wait, weren't you supposed to have unfollowed him 3 days ago? Well, how are you still here? How are you still seeing these posts? Because if you're really unfollowing somebody, like for me, if I don't want to see your page, I'm muting you, I'm blocking you, I'm unfollowing you. Like I'm making sure there is no way that your content can leak through into my own little ecosystem, right? That's how I move. If I tell, I won't even tell you. Okay, I've never told a single person I'm unfollowing. I just unfollow. I'll mute, block, whatever the application has, I will use as my resource in order to separate myself from whatever your message is, if it is really that problematic and detrimental, right? Because they're saying, it's an attack on you. These individuals see everything as an attack, everything as a microaggression, everything is, I digress. So I found a sense of freedom that I never knew could exist the moment I did the very thing that led to the greatest fear I ever had, which was being excluded from the so-called group, which meant, I no longer have this identity affiliation. So now it's like, I can compare this to when I was on dope and I got off of that. At 19 years old, I made a decision that I was going to cut myself off of not just that lifestyle, running around selling dope, smoking dope, whatever it was, but also the people, but also the lifestyle, the affiliations, the associations that I had while I was indulging in these chemical dependencies, let's just say. And when you step out of something like that, I found that it was just as, if not more difficult, to let go of the identity that I had built up in this, as it was the actual drugs themselves, right? To let go of the people that I kind of mirrored me, and we had this trauma bonded type relationship, that was far more difficult. And so getting off of that Democratic plantation fully and completely, because I'd already stepped off of it, I guess you could say, for a long time, for years now, right? My beliefs have not resonated with the Democratic plantation for a very long time, right? I became unwoke and instead became awake quite a while back. However, I was still teeter-tottering because essentially I was afraid to take the full plunge, to get the hell off of the plantation and to have the rest of, the slaves that remained on that plantation going off on me, right? Yelling, screaming, clawing, fighting, shooting arrows at my back, whatever it may be. That was the fear that I had. Yet when I did the thing that led to exactly that, I felt a sense of freedom and liberation. And I wish I could inject this experience into everybody, because I know so many people are afraid to just speak out and tell the truth about where they stand because of this fear. You got family members who will cut you off, right? I got a big brother, my blood brother, right? Not even a half brother, my blood brother, full blood, same mama, same daddy. And because he has his own ideologies, right? He's given over to what I call the woke ideology, or so-called progressivism, whatever it is, the alphabet mafia, such and such. He chose not to talk to me after finding out who I voted for. And that was a step of fear mixed with courage, and a little more courage than fear, when I was like, damn, I don't want to even have to go there with my big brother, but you know what? I got to say something. And when I told him, I said, look, this is how I voted. This is where I stand. I love you. This changes nothing about us. If you want to have a relationship, I'm perfectly fine. The fact that I had to send that in the first place really shows you just how much of a cult ideology the far left, progressive left really is. People love to say, oh, MAGA's a cult. MAGA's a cult. And I say, people within MAGA, they're fractions. Like, people have disagreements out the damn wahoo. When Vivek and Elon were starting to talk about one thing, that you saw the divides and the splits, and there's different ideas. That's how it's supposed to be in any movement. You're supposed to have disagreements, but then come together on the things that matter most. Simple. So 77 million people in the country, support the most important things, and then you're going to have fractions and different ideologies all over. You're going to have splits, as you should. You shouldn't have one single ideology. If you deviate a little bit, then you're ostracized. That is a actual cult. And that's why I continue to reference the woke left as a cult. I'm not trying to do it as, I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to take away from their argument's sake. I'm just simply exposing it for what it actually is, right? Some of the information that they spew sounds correct. And then when you actually dig deeper, it's like, oh, no, this is dogma. It's not actually about facts. But I digress. So there are many of us, there are many out there who are still afraid to speak out. You believe that you're going to be kicked out of the tribe. You believe that you're no longer going to belong. Maybe you're the only one, or maybe you and your significant other, whatever it is, are the only ones. And, you'll stop getting invited to Christmas. You'll stop getting invited to whatever else celebrations, right? The Easter egg hunts and, getting the kids together. And I tell you this, if you are unable to be who you are completely in a relationship, then you have no relationship at all. It is conditional. And I believe if you're going to have a relationship, there has to be a level of unconditionality, right? So if they love you for you, then politics, religion, whatever it is, doesn't have to be what divides you. You can debate, you can do this, you can do that, you can stand where you stand, you hold your boundaries on both sides. But if they can't have a relationship with you, then they simply don't accept you for who you are, right? Whatever your values are, they don't have enough respect for you to say, you have your value system, I have mine. You have what you stand on, I have mine. They're damn sure not going to actually listen beyond, the media propaganda to say you might be misunderstanding what it is that I actually stand for and what represents me. Because as far as they're concerned, oh, you're just a racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, fascistic, but like that's how they're seeing you because that's all they can hear and that's all they can see. And to be fair, that's actually a defense mechanism, right? Is to shame you into either being like them or to put so much, to put these labels on you in order for them to never have to listen to you. Because if they start to actually listen with a little bit of open-mindedness, they will flip themselves like a lot of us did. Once you actually start to open your mind to think just a little bit, not to regurgitate, not to go from a place of, resentment, anger, go from that reptilian brain, go from a fight or flight state where you're trying to self-preserve. No, when you actually start to use, your cerebral powers, when you start to use that prefrontal cortex, when you start to use that executive function of the brain, when you start to think for yourself, you say, wait a minute, this shit don't make sense. This doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Wait a minute, what's actually going on? Let me research. Oh my God, wait, what? So he's not actually that person. Oh, so this isn't really what that is? Oh. If that happens, that is the most terrifying image. That is the most terrifying proposition for somebody who's given over to a cult ideology. So they would do anything to defend that cult. They would do anything to defend its leaders, etc. So you on the other side, who has now began to think for yourself or has been, maybe it's been decades, but there's a fear of stepping out because again, there's a primitive aspect of us, which is like, I want to be connected to a tribe. I want you to know that first and foremost, you don't need the validation of any damn body else. You really do not. If you live off of the validation of others, you will die off of the lack of it. Simple. If you want to be free in this life, you have to unlatch yourself from needing somebody else's approval. And that's what we're looking for when we're being fake, when we're not being truthful, when we're not showing up 100%. I'm not saying you got to walk up in every single, function and, hey, this is MAGA country. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying you can show up exactly how you are. And that's all there is to it. And they get to show up exactly how they are. You put up with their craziness and their madness all the time. You let them pop off all the time. And then when you just want to get a word in, you allow yourself to be silenced. Absolutely not. The way we got here because of the silent majority. Thank God we weren't silent at the polls, etc. But we got to this place because we allowed ourselves to be bullied into submission. We were the silent majority. And when you look at 1930s, 1940s Germany, what the hell happened there? How did these people just go along with this entire damn eugenics program? Like how? Simple. There was a silent majority. Most people who actually didn't believe or buy into this, most people who saw this as egregious, sat back quietly, said nothing. And that allowed the big bullies, who were a smaller group, fringe group, it allowed them to take over. And so they became the loudest voice, just like these woke ideologues, right? Screeching, screaming, yelling, fighting, protesting every damn thing. Everything is a means for activism, quote unquote, selective outrage. They're only mad when it benefits them. These feminists who cry patriarchy and sexism, but then say nothing about what's going on with the women in the Middle East or of those cultures or, the UK situation. They say nothing about that because it doesn't serve their own agenda, their own religious fraction, their own cult ideology. So in the face of that, we have to be willing to speak the truth. And we love to talk about speaking the truth in love. Yeah, the most loving thing you can do is to tell the truth exactly how it is. Exactly how it is. The truth is love because truth allows for the opportunity of freedom. They say the truth sets you free only when you ingest it, only when you accept it. It only works when you usher in the truth. And the truth will hit you and it will do two things. It will change you because you accepted it, or it will trigger you because you reject it, right? One of two things. And maybe at first it would trigger and then you accept it down the road. But oftentimes, if you don't want the truth, it's going to trigger you. People who hear the truth will fight, argue, scratch, claw. I mean, something as basic as, hey, in nature, there are two genders, male, female. Just that biological imperative in today's time, like in this modern time, this modern age of ours, will set an individual off. Basic truth. Basic. I'm talking about it has been this way since the beginning of time. And yet because somebody had a need to, signal themselves as different, signal themselves as special, signal themselves as victim, oppressed, whatever it may be, right? They want to twist the truth and use it for their own benefit. And when you continue to speak to the truth and only address the truth, you will see one of two reactions. There's either going to be an acceptance of it, as hard as it may be, or there's going to be a triggering. And so for those of us who have accepted it, you have to continue to stand on that truth and speak the truth. We can never let this, what happened to our society, this so-called woke mind virus that has spread, we can never let this happen again. And we can learn from history. We can see what's happened when an ideology takes over and nobody does anything, or the masses don't do anything. They stay quiet. They don't resist. They don't oppose. They don't call it out. We're too afraid of the bullying, the coercion. We're too afraid of the cancel culture, whatever it may be. I get it. Trust me, for years I was afraid of what it meant to be canceled. Now that I am canceled, or I was canceled, whatever that meant. Look, as soon as I was canceled, everything went like this, because now I could just be myself. Some people call me, oh, you a grifter. Oh, how's this grift working for you for the white man? And I'm like, oh, little do you know, this is how I felt the entire time. It's just I was too afraid to actually speak. So I guess before I was more of a grifter, you know what I mean? Because I was afraid to say everything exactly as it was. But now these are the conversations I was having behind closed doors. And I was like, damn, I just don't want to get canceled. You know what? To hell with it. I'm here. I'm going to tell it exactly how it is every single time. And what are you going to do about it? Nothing, because the truth is the truth and it makes you angry. I don't have to yell it. I don't have to fight it into you. I just say it and it is what it is. Black people cannot be racist. Black people can be racist. And oftentimes in this day and age, they are the most because they have leeway. They're allowed to. How dare you? All I had to say was the truth. All I had to say was the truth. Period. Period. We are the human race. It's not actually black, white, this, that, that. No. We're the human race. Therefore, interracial relationships are technically interracial relationships. How could, no, black people, white people, but the culture, but no, but they don't even put you on it. The truth is the truth. You can yell, scream, claw, fight, scratch, whatever it is. The truth is still the damn truth. And it will either trigger you or it will set you free.
I used to be afraid of the dark, place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising.